Hello fellow Scratchers, and welcome back to our very awesome text engine tutorial. And we are really rocking now. With our custom font, we've successfully written out our first paragraphs of text and have it positioned beautifully in our dialog box with words wrapping at the right hand edge. So the next fun step is to pump loads more text into our code and figure out how to handle pagination. That is, the automatic splitting of text into pages to avoid it overflowing below our text area. While we're at it, we'll also give our text a fun entrance and exit animation, add user input to proceed to the next page, and to fast skip through longer dialogue. Yeah, this is going to be epic. So, if you haven't already, why not save your project as a fresh new copy? This is episode 3. Guys, let's get scratching. So in your main character sprite, the Scratchy sprite, why not add lots more paragraphs of text to our script list? We just want to make sure that we've written enough that it will overflow the bottom of our text dialog. However, if you run the project, you'll see that we're still only outputting the first paragraph, the first line that we've added to the script list. So click with me into the text engine sprite and find the when I receive play script from start to end. But what you'll see is that we left this processing a single paragraph. That's one line of our script block. So we need to extend this to be able to repeat through each of the lines of the script list, outputting each paragraph one at a time. Right then, I've made a bit of space using the Scratch add-ons extension, and we can drop in a forever loop around the set paragraph and the process single paragraph. So that's almost all we need, but we do just need to make sure that we move on to the next line of the script each time we go around this loop. And we'll do that using the delete trick. So as soon as we've got the first item out of the script, we then delete that first item from the list. So that every time we go round this loop, we'll take the first item, delete it, and then take the next first item and delete that. And if we run the project, you'll see this now outputs all of our text, and whoo, it doesn't half cause a bit of overflow. And this is what we're going to fix in this episode. However, there's one more thing going on here that I want to draw your attention to. What I want you to look at is the end of this first paragraph. It ends with "Hope you are well" and a smiley face. And that just happens to end at the end of a line. But if we take that away and run it, you'll see that the next paragraph, the "Today we are going," that just then continues from the end of the first paragraph, and that's not how paragraphs are supposed to work. We want the next paragraph to begin on the next line. And we can do that really easily just by dropping in one of our custom blocks we've already written, the new line custom block, after processing our single paragraph. And now run that again. And now we get a line break after the end of the "you today?" ? And that's how it's supposed to work. Excellent. A new paragraph. Okay, excellent. So we can now focus on the pagination, looking for where this text overflows the bottom edge of our dialog. And the obvious place to check for overflow would be in that new line custom block, because every time we break onto a new line, that is when it could overflow the bottom of the dialog. So stop the project and find our new line custom block. And you can see we're changing y by a negative number to move us down to the next line. So drop in an if, and we'll look to see if the y position is less than. That's the y position, just find that in the motion block. And we want to check if it's less than the bottom of this dialog box. And if you remember, that is stored in our speakers list. Just duplicate it from the set X. And then why don't we make the speakers list visible? And we can double check which one of these items it is. It's the X and Y of the top left, and then the X and Y of the bottom right. So it's this very bottom one that we want, the item number 5. But of course, speaker is number 1, so it's 1 plus 4 will get us to 5. So item speaker hash plus 4 of speakers is the bottom of the dialog. And when our text moves below this point, we don't want to continue drawing because it'll overflow. So we're going to wait for a key press. Wait until key space pressed. Right, so once a key has been pressed, we're going to need to reset this dialog for the next page of text. And it just so happens we already have a reset page custom block. So is that everything we need? Let's run the project and find out. As you can see, the first page of text stops when we reach the end. We press space, and oh no, that is not what we want. Yes, the text is being reset back to the top left, but unfortunately, it's not clearing the previous letters, and it's just writing straight over the top. We're going to have to delete all of the text clones before resetting the position like we currently are. So to tell all of these text clones that we want to delete them, we'll use a broadcast and wait. And we're going to make a new message, calling it clear dialog text. Okay. And then, of course, still in the text engine, just a bit to the left, I think, I'm going to drop in a when I receive hat block, and it's going to be when I receive clear dialog text. So all of the different letters will receive this block, and we could just delete this clone right now. But that's not half as exciting as if we gave it a little animation. So let's find the repeat block, and we repeat for 3. We don't want it to be a really slow animation, so 3 should do. And we're going to change the ghost effect to fade these letters out. Yes, by 25 actually. 25, 25 and 25 is 75, and then we delete it, so that's great. But we'll also change Y by -1, just to slowly move it down as it disappears, and then finally delete this clone. I think that deserves a test. Smash the green flag, and watch our text write out. And then if I go full screen and press the spacebar, we get that really cool fading out animation. But there's a problem. I'm afraid the next page of text then appears faded out, and that is not intentional. I wonder if you know why it's happening. Perhaps I should give you a second to try and work it out. Drop me a comment under the video if you know. Right then, so the reason is we're broadcasting this clear dialog text here, and not only do the clone texts receive this and fade out, but also the original text sprite that is cloning the new text sprites. So if that one gets faded out, the new clones inherit the faded out nature, and every time the new page of text comes on, they're a bit more faded out. So we need to reset this fade for the new clones. So we'll do it in the when I start as a clone. With a set effect, changing it to the ghost, and we'll set the ghost effect to 0. And that should do the trick. Run the project, press space, and it does indeed. Our text resets back to white, and look at this! We've done it! We've got our text beautifully paginated. And it looks so good with our custom font. I'm really pleased with that. So, what can we improve? Well, since we're animating our text as it disappears off the screen, why don't we give it an entrance animation as it appears when it's cloned? Okay, so if we're going to give it a little bit of motion, we want it to end at the position it currently is at, because it's already positioned where we want it to end. So we're going to create 2 new variables, target X for this sprite only, and target Y also for this sprite only. And then we set these to the current X and Y position. So set target X to the X position, and set target Y to the Y position. Now we're free to move our letter any way we want, but we remember where it needs to go to when it finishes animating. So let's set the ghost effect to 100 so that it starts faded out, and we'll fade it in as we go. Then we're going to change the current position with an offset, so change X by 15. That moves it 15 pixels to the right. Now we're going to animate, so bring in a repeat loop, and we might as well stick to the 10 frames. The entrance animation wants to be a little bit longer than the exit. And I want it to move towards the target, so change X by. So let's find out how far we need to move to get to the target. We use a subtract block, and we subtract from the target, that is target X. And we subtract the current position, X position. That gives us the distance to our target. So we're going to move by that amount, but only a fraction of it. So we divide that by 2. So each time round our repeat loop, we move by half the distance, so the letters will seem to slide to a nice stop. And of course we're ghosted, so we need to change our ghost effect to take it from 100 back down to 0. So to do that, we need to change ghost effect by -10. 10 times. Super! Let's smash the green flag and give that a test. Ooh, look at this. Run that again. Can you see that? So the text is now kind of sliding in as it writes out. Yeah, that is so cool. And you can imagine that with this little clone script here, we could probably do quite a few little animation effects, like changing X by 100. And whoa, that slides in from a much further distance. Quite cool. Or we could use a negative distance to have it sliding in from the left. Try that. -15. And I think this gives the text engine a really smooth appearance. The text kind of slides in now. Yeah, I'll leave it up to you which you prefer to have in your game. And of course, you don't need to limit yourself to this sliding X animation either. You could do Y animations and all sorts of things, scaling, bigger, smaller. If you come up with something good, then do post a link to it under the video. We all love to see it. So I think I'm just going to change my X by 15. That's how I like mine to start, scrolling in slightly from the right. Okay, so moving on. It's always important that in our games, we tell the user playing the game what to do next. And at the moment in our pagination, we are not telling them that they need to press a key to continue to the next page. And it might be obvious enough to us, but it's probably worthwhile having some little icon here to show that we're expecting them to press space. Okay then, so we could put this in the dialog box, but I really want to keep this all in the text engine as much as possible. So click into the costume tab, and right at the very bottom, you may find you already have a costume which is called More. If not, then create a new costume now, and then it's up to you how you want to depict this continuation button. I'm just going to use the text tool and write out space in square brackets, like that. And we want to have it centered, but we might want to reduce its size just a little bit, always snapping it back to the center. It'll probably help if you make it visible on the stage. Then you can drag it to about where you want it to be and check out its size. Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger then. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's give this costume a name. I'm just going to call it More. M-O-R-E. Okay, click back into the code tab. And then it's going to be in the new line script here, because this is where we're waiting for the space to be pressed. But rather than just showing it before we wait and then hiding it again, I want it to animate up and down while we're waiting. So we can't use a wait until. Let's create a new custom block for this, naming it Wait for Skip Key. And of course we don't want to run without screen refresh because this is an animation. I'll just drop that into some free space below here. And now we're going to want to use this right away before we wait until. And then pull out that wait until. We don't want it to be running there. We'll run that inside our wait for skip key. Or at least we kind of do. We don't want to wait until. We want the repeat until. So bring in a repeat until block. And we'll do that instead of the wait until. Now we can stuff our animation scripts inside this wait until. Feel free to double check that this is still working as it did before. And yep, it does. It waits for our key press. But just before we add in that animation, let's make that More costume appear. Switch costume to More. And then of course we need to show that block too. And position it on the screen where we want it. So just click that to make it visible and drag it to where we want it to appear. Roughly here, somewhere in the middle at the bottom. And then, once that's in place, from the motion category, the go to XY block after we show. And it's going to be roughly where it says, but I want to center it properly, so go to X of 0, and I might as well average this to -150. It just seems like a good number. Just click the wait for skip key to confirm where it positions it. Yeah, that looks great. We've made the notification visible. Let's hide it when we've finished waiting. Drop in a hide block at the very end. Click the block to test it again, and now pressing space makes it disappear. Good, good, good. Now we can add our animation. Hooray! I'm thinking to fade this message in and out in a nice kind of wave pattern. So we'll set the ghost effect to a base level of 40, and we're going to oscillate around that value. So next we'll have a change ghost effect by, and we need a multiplication to say how much we're changing our ghost effect by. I think 25 above and below 40 should be a good value. And we want to multiply by the sine operator. Find that in here. Where is it? There it is. Sine of, and on the right we want the current time. But again, we need to multiply that, so multiply the current timer by 300. So roughly every second this thing will fade in and out. Give it another test by clicking the wait for skip key. And there you go. It's red at the moment, it'll be white when we do it properly, but you can see that it's now kind of oscillating in and out, fading in and out. And that's pretty cool. It draws your attention to what you need to do. You need to press the space key. Hey, shall we see this in action? Run the project properly now? And this gives us an opportunity to make sure that it's in a good space on its own, not overlapping the other text in the dialogue. Hit the space key, and our next page of text appears, including the space indicator once more. And this continues until there's no more text to be displayed. And yes, I'm quite aware that the last page keeps on asking for space and never finishes. Don't worry about that, we'll come back and fix it later on. But right now we've got bigger eggs to fry. Let's talk about quality of life improvements. And there's a few of these that we need to make. Firstly, games that have lots and lots of narrative can get rather annoying if you can't quickly skip through the text if you want to. And that is an absolute must that we have to implement. But there can be all sorts of problems rolled up with this, like making sure it doesn't skip if the spacebar was accidentally held down, or if we press to skip just as the space option appears and we skip the next page instead. That'd be so annoying. So we're going to have to do this with a little bit of care. Here we are waiting for the space key to be pressed in the text engine sprite. But I'm going to move the handling of the spacebar into our dialog sprite. So click in there now. I'm not sure if you've got these helper scripts that I've got in here or not, they're in the remix project, but we're going to want a new when flag click block. And we're going to have a forever loop so that we can continually check for the key press. Then an if else. And then rather than just looking for the spacebar, we have the opportunity now to look for a more varied selection of keys and clicks. Clicks being the primary example here. So when key space pressed or mouse down. So I can click through the text instead. And we need a new variable to store the action in. We're going to call it action key, and it's for all sprites. And we use this not only to say that the key is pressed, but how long it's been pressed for. So rather than setting action key, we change action key by 1. And then when we're not pressing it in the else, we set action key to 0. If you run that script, you can see it in action. We hold down the spacebar and woohoo! The action key number zooms up. It'll go a lot slower when the actual project's running at the same time. The important thing is action key is only set to 1 when you first press the key, and then it goes on to 2, 3, 4, so we can detect when a key is first pressed. But as well as this, we're going to need a latch so that we can keep hold of the fact that a key has been pressed, even after you let go. And for that, we'll create a new variable named skip dialog for all sprites. And then once we've changed action key, check to see whether it equals 1. Remember, action key only equals 1 when you first press the key down. When action key equals 1, then we can set our skip dialog variable, set skip dialog variable to 1. Okay, so that will never get set back to 0 in this little keyboard handler script, and that's purposeful. That'll happen in the text engine. Well, I say that, we should really initialize its value when the project starts. So under the when green flag clicked at the top here, set skip dialog to 0. And then when we click the green flag, skip dialog 0, press the space, and the little 1 appears in the skip dialog, and it only resets by pressing the green flag. So now let's hook this all together. Click into the text engine sprite, and in our wait for skip key, we're going to switch out this key space pressed, and in its place, we're going to use the action key variable. And now remember, we can now detect when the action key is first pressed rather than being held down, unlike that key space pressed. When the action key is 1, it has just been pressed. So that is our first quality of life improvement, not accidentally skipping over when you have the key pressed already, because this will only trigger when the key is first pressed. Smash the green flag and let's give this a go. Our first test is to press the spacebar, and it does skip, so let's try using the mouse instead. Woohoo! How about that? But tell me, should the next page of text have appeared before I released the mouse button? This one is debatable. It can feel more responsive if it appears straight away, but some people like it to wait, so let's try that. Wait until action key is back to 0. And then hide. And then run the project again, and let's see which you prefer. Now, if I hold down the button, you'll see the next page indicator pauses until I release, and then the next page appears. So you can choose which of these two mechanisms you prefer. Do you like it to wait until I let go of the button, or do you prefer the next page of text to appear as soon as you press the button? Goodbye when key pressed. And now onto something much more fun. This is the bit where we get to skip through our text really quickly. The idea being, as it's still animating on, we press space, and then it all appears really quickly. Whether we read it or not, it's our choice. And then we can skip on to the next page. And I'm not going to lie, this feature can be really quite tricky to implement correctly when you've got all these other layers of effects and animations going on. Find the Process Single Paragraph custom block. And you might be tempted to think that to speed this up, we just click the Run Without Screen Refresh. But stop right there, we cannot do that, because this processing of a paragraph could be split between pages, the pagination, and if it's waiting for a key press, you cannot have it running without screen refresh, because then Scratch just blows up and things get really slow and sluggish. So, How about a compromise? We're already breaking up our paragraphs into words. How about we speed up the writing of a single word? The right letters length of word. Edit that custom block and try clicking the run without screen refresh. And then run the project. And I think you'll agree, this text is now rendering really quite quickly. I could quite happily skip through entire paragraphs at this speed. In which case, so the only trick is trying to find a way of having this right letters kind of optionally run without screen refresh or not, depending on whether we're skipping dialogue. Yes, not so easy. So we'll just come back to that in a second, because I've just noticed that we still have a change x by 10 here at the bottom of the process single paragraph. We added that to add the spaces between words, but we really should be using the proper length of a space, and that is costume number 1, I think. So in place of the change x by 10, we'll drop in a multiply by 2 of the item 1 of font halves. That means 2 halves of a space, and then run the project just to check. And you can see whether or not you like the amount of space that you've got. If you find it slightly too wide, then you can always shrink the width of the letter O at the beginning of your font. And my text is really squashed together now. Oh, and I've just realised why that is. My new line script is also using the width of the first character to work out the line height of each line of text. So we probably should make that work off the second letter instead, the A. Then that's independent of the spacing of words. So back to the task at hand, the skipping of dialogue. And that means the speeding up of this right letters or not, depending on whether we're skipping or not. So create a new custom block, naming it write word. We're going to write a single word, and this one doesn't run without screen refresh. So this is the one that can run at normal speed, writing out a letter at a time. So I'm going to move it over here underneath the existing write letters script, and that's the one that's now running without screen refresh really fast. And that means where we're currently writing letters, we're going to replace that with our new write word block. Being careful to move the right letters out of the way and return the change x by underneath our new write word block. Then drop the right letters inside our define write word custom block and run the project just to make sure that everything is running exactly as it did before. And it does. But of course our write letters still runs without screen refresh, so it's still running blazingly fast. We need to slow this down. So drop in a new repeat block around the right letters, this time repeating for the length of word. That's once for each letter. And each time we only write out one letter at a time. The effect of this is that if we run the project, our text now writes out a letter at a time, nice and slowly as before. Now this is what we wanted to do when we're not skipping through dialogue. But what if we are skipping through dialogue? Well then, drop in an if above our write letters. So while we're writing out a letter at a time, if the skip dialogue variable is greater than 0, well then, we do want to start writing out fast, so drop in another write letters block there, and we'll instantly write out all the remaining letters left in the word list. And if we've written them all out, we don't want to continue with this outer loop, so we'll stop this script. Okay, do you see what we're doing here? The outer loop runs slowly, a letter at a time, but when we're skipping dialogue, it defers to the write letters script, which is running without screen refresh, and does the whole thing in one go. The beauty of this is you can even interrupt it mid-word and start going fast, which is what we want. So smash the green flag and let's see this in action. In our first test, make sure that you can leave it to run for a whole page and no skipping occurs. And the second time, press it mid-text, and the rest of the page gets completed really fast. That's great. The only problem is, once we've skipped the dialogue once, it stays skipping dialogue for the rest of eternity until we restart the project. We need that to reset after we've pressed the space to move on to the next page. So the script I'm looking for is the define reset page script. A page reset indicates that we're starting new, so we want to set our dialogue skip variable. At the top of this block, or anywhere in there really, skip dialogue, set it back to 0. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. Run your projects and let's give this a test. What you should find is that we can now hit skip to quickly move through a page of dialogue, and then it pauses, so we can read it. And crucially, it doesn't move on to the next page even if we're still holding down our button. And that's because it only triggers on the press of a key when action key is 1. And then, on releasing and pressing the key again, we can continue. Skip dialogue is reset. And it takes another press to initiate the skip once more. Yes, it's working great. Now, it's my personal preference, but I think I'm going to go back to remove the need to wait for a key up in the wait for skip key press script. I want to see my next page of dialog appear right away as soon as I press the button. That makes the whole skipping process feel more fluid, I think. Okay, one more quality of life improvement I want to make. Sometimes we might go to fast skip some dialog text only to press the button too late and accidentally skip the text before we got to read it. So annoying. Well, we can guard against this a little bit by simply adding a forced delay before the skip indicator appears. We need to drop an if block at the top of our wait for skip key script. This delay only wants to be imposed when we are not already skipping dialog. So if skip dialog is equal to 0, we're not skipping, then we want to wait for a short period of time, just 0.2 of a second, just long enough to catch an accidental click. Give that a test and see what you think. I did try a few values for that wait, and this one seems like the sweet spot. But again, you can decide if you want this delay or not. Completely up to you. So guys, how are we doing? Pretty good, I'd say. Most of the base text engine is now working perfectly. Our next step is to handle how the dialog box as a whole transitions in and out, and how we can code up the different speaker characters, and all those funky text effects that I promised you at the beginning. Oh wow! As you might have expected though, these awesome and super exciting features will be coded up in the final fun episode of this short series, episode 4. So until then, do have a great week ahead, and scratch on, guys.